Jon Jones is fighting for only the second time in 5 years, and he is bringing his signature drama with him. It's not even fight day, and we've already dealt with him walking out on interviews because somebody had the gall to mention Tom Aspinall's name. He essentially demanded the UFC use the old gloves because he didn't like the new ones, even though they spent millions of dollars researching them. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and I'm going to walk you through the entire UFC 309 fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and DraftKings Fantasy plays. Before we do that, let's look at the success that our premium members have been having. If you don't know, you can go to WeWantPicks.com, become a premium member. It's only $10 for an entire month. You'll unlock all sorts of tools and picks and bets and everything that you need heading into a fight week. This community, these pictures here, are only for DraftKings Fantasy. This isn't betting. This is the act of building a DraftKings lineup and competing with other people. We have put up almost $700,000 in winning tickets over the last year. Just last month, we had a $32,000 ticket. The month before that, we had a $54,000 ticket. And in between all of that, we have many tickets with hundreds of dollars, many tickets with thousands of dollars, and overall, the community is absolutely feasting at DraftKings Fantasy. You can unlock all the tools. You can unlock the best ownership projections on planet Earth. Just go to WeWantPicks.com and click Become a Member. If you are familiar with DraftKings Fantasy, you know how important these ownership projections can be. This is what helps separate you from the pack. We quite literally, it is an objective fact, we have the best DraftKings ownership projections on the planet. If anybody else is saying that they do, they are wrong. Just screenshot this graphic, screenshot their numbers, and compare the two. It's just that simple. If you look at these columns, you see competitor 1, competitor 2, competitor 3. All the way to the right, We Want Picks. Those are our numbers. The competitors on here, it's not Joe Blow's Patreon. It's not Twitter Dumb Dicks, whatever the hell he's selling. It is actual competitors. We're talking about the Awesomos, the Roto Grinders, the companies that have hundreds of millions of dollars built into them, funneled into them to produce these numbers, and they can't. We quite literally beat them week in and week out. And those numbers are preloaded into the DraftKings Optimizer. This Optimizer will build DraftKings fantasy lineups for you. A couple clicks of the button, it'll spit out 150 lineups. You're also going to have access to the cheat sheet. This isn't populated right now because this doesn't get populated until about 6 p.m. Eastern time on the Friday of weigh-ins. And the reason we wait that long is because we have the most accurate ownership projections on the planet. The weigh-ins change things dramatically. If you have ownership projections before the weigh-ins, they're utterly useless. What if somebody misses weight? What if somebody looks like death walking onto the scale? All of those things affect the outcomes. Unlock all of this, as well as the bets and everything else that we do. One single package, $10 for an entire month. You're going to get UFC 309. You're also going to get UFC 310. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. Let's go ahead and break down this card. We do have 13 fights. We have a brand new David Onama opponent. We're going to break that down. If you watched the Tuesday live video, we didn't break it down then. That fight was announced literally an hour before we went live. Just wasn't enough time. I will break it down here. And every week, some people are like, what is this video? What's the difference between this video and the other video? Well, first of all, this is towards the end of the week, so there are changes. Example, David Onama. Second of all, I am going to break down the fights, just give you who I think wins and how and my prediction. But we're also going to talk about DraftKings Fantasy. I know a bunch of you watch this video that don't know what DraftKings Fantasy is. It's daily fantasy. There's chapters in this video. Skip ahead if you don't want to hear this shit. There is DraftKings Fantasy and DraftKings Sportsbook. Sportsbook is just betting on sports. DraftKings Fantasy is daily fantasy. Think fantasy football, fantasy baseball. You have a budget of $50,000 and you have to select 6 fighters at their designated price points to build out a lineup. You take that lineup and you compete with other people for money. You can still make a ton of money doing this. It is not sports betting. It is daily fantasy, and it is legal in basically every single state in America. Internationally, I have no freaking clue. I live in a bubble. Let's go ahead and break down this card. Opening up the UFC 309 fight card. We have Veronica Hardy taking on Eduarda Moura. This is an interesting case to start this video with because the person I'm picking to win and the person I would put in my fantasy lineup are two different people. Veronica Hardy's a very good striker. She's a 5-time Taekwondo champion. And you can see those skills. She's laser fast, has some good power in her hands, very high fight IQ. She's obviously well coached by her husband, former UFC fighter Dan Hardy. She also has some offensive grappling. You see this Juliana Miller fight. She came back after a bit of a layoff, 3 years to be exact, showed up and just started wrestling like a Nurmagomedov. But she remained a very technical striker, and that's who she is at her core. She is fighting Eduarda Moura. Eduarda Moura is 1-1 in the UFC. She didn't have the best outing in her last fight against Diniz Gomes, but we know how good Diniz Gomes is. What Eduarda Moura did have is 5 actual takedowns. What she also had, I believe, was 26 total takedowns shot. So a whole bunch got defended. And that obviously destroys her takedown accuracy. But it does show you that she's an absolute dog. She did get tired in that fight. She gassed a little bit. She likes to come forward, wrestle heavy, grapple heavy. The takedowns are pretty solid. The submissions are okay. She is very aggressive with the grappling. She's not going to waste a ton of time striking. She's going to come forward, try to get those takedowns. My fear for Eduarda here is this might look like the Diniz Gomes fight. She might have success with the takedowns, in that case 5. But she's not going to be the better striker. So Veronica Hardy's going to get off with the striking, get her hands going, sort of touch up Eduarda Moura. But if we're talking about who to put in your DraftKings fantasy lineup, Veronica Hardy is going to score like absolute dog shit. Win or lose, she is not scoring well. She's not going to finish Eduarda. She's not going to have offensive takedowns. So she's literally only going to score points pot-shotting and staying away on the outside. That's it. And then a 30-point win bonus. Eduarda Moura scored 46 points in a loss against Diniz Gomes. She could definitely win this fight. Eduarda Moura is a much better person for your DraftKings fantasy lineup at $7,500. So I probably have a little bit of that, especially on a card like this, where we have a couple of really, really expensive fighters. Then we have the brand new... Oh, no, it's all the way up. Sorry, I was going to go right to David Onama, but that's high up there. So we're going to go to Oban Elliott taking on Bassil Hafez. You guys are going to hate this take, but you're going to get it anyway. Oban Elliott, well-rounded guy. He's got 15 full minutes of cardio. He's got a whole bunch of tools in the bag, so he can strike, he can grapple. When he is striking, he likes to dance around the outside, fire some overhands, close the distance. He's not dangerous, but he is fast, he is athletic, and he's down to work. He's just going to work. He's going to stay busy on his feet. He'll scramble in the grappling exchanges. Offensive wrestling isn't spectacular, but it's there. His scrambles are solid. He'll try to snatch things up. Not dangerous. Can't emphasize that enough because that does play into who I think wins this fight. He's taking on Bassil Hafez. Bassil Hafez is pretty good. Is he amazing? No. But he is pretty good, and he's better than people give him credit for. A couple of things are happening with the Bassil Hafez perception. He stepped up on insanely short notice against Jack Della Maddalena. Had a decent outing. Had 3 takedowns. Stayed in that guy's face. Wasn't afraid of shit. Wasn't afraid of shit. Jack Della Maddalena, who finished Gilbert Burns. Bassil Hafez just stayed in his face, kept moving forward, shooting takedowns. Yeah, he clearly lost that fight. But it was short notice, and he showed us that he's a man. Then he came out, fought Mickey Gall, camp. No short notice, nothing. Didn't look spectacular. Mickey Gall actually had him in a little bit of trouble. So now people went from being like, Bassil Hafez is a guy. He had success against Jack Della Maddalena on short notice, to Bassil Hafez sucks because Mickey Gall gave him a hard time. Mickey Gall is a lot better than people give him credit for. We'll break him down in a minute. Style-wise, Bassil Hafez is a heavy-handed grappler. He will come forward. He will put his hands on you. He will swing very hard. He's got some power. And he will look to grapple. His biggest issue is cardio. His cardio kind of absolutely sucks. That is his biggest issue. But he can come forward. He's got a decent enough chin. Even if he gets wobbled and cracked, he continues to move forward. He'll shoot his takedowns. He's got good jiu-jitsu, okay wrestling, and he'll just continue moving forward. Even when he's tired, he'll slow down, but he'll still moving forward. I think Bassil can win this fight. I know people love Oban, and the line is exploding. I bet on Bassil Hafez. I got him at like plus 134. He's plus 200 something now. So I definitely am on the wrong side of that line movement. But I still think Bassil can win this fight. I think Oban Elliott's getting a little too much credit for stuff. I don't think he's as good as people think he is. I think Bassil Hafez wins this fight. I'm going to straight up pick him when I'm exploring DraftKings fantasy lineups. I mean, look at the numbers he did here against Mickey Gall. Look what he did against Jack Della. 48, short notice, lost that fight. So I think he's worth a stab or two. Bassil Hafez is going to be the pick. I know people absolutely despise that. Then we have Mickey Gall taking on Ramiz Brahimaj. Well, you heard me say it already. Mickey Gall's better than people give him credit for. $8,300 might end up being a great price point for this guy. The reason Mickey Gall has such a shit record of 7-6 is because if we go all the way back, look at his UFC career. He fought Mike Jackson. Is it Mike Jackson? What the hell is his name? I forget who his name was. Was it Mike Jackson? The guy sucks. He beat that dude. Then they said, fight CM Punk. So they brought CM Punk in, the famous wrestler. If you've been watching the sport post-COVID, well, back in 2016, they spent $1 million on CM Punk just to come in here and get his ass kicked. So they brought in CM Punk, and Mickey Gall beats him pretty handily in the first round. Then Mickey Gall beats Sage Northcutt. Again, if you're new here, Sage Northcutt back in the day was a great prospect. Young kid, good-looking, phenomenal shape, very good. And Mickey Gall smoked him. Then the UFC is like, whoa, is Mickey Gall good? And then it was just win, lose, win, lose, win, lose, because now he's fighting better, upper echelon people. And unfortunately for Mickey Gall, this fight against Jackson and then Punk, these are like the second and third fights of his career. So he didn't have a full-blown regional scene career to develop his skills and to get better and to learn on the fly. He had to learn inside the biggest organization on planet Earth. He somehow managed to stay in the organization the entire time. Yeah, there was a layoff between the Mike Malott loss and then the Bassil Hafez loss. But he didn't go back to the regional scene. He didn't get kicked around, beat 30 people on the side, all UFC the entire time. So that affects his record. But his skills are good. He's a good grappler. He's not afraid to strike. He's got great jiu-jitsu. Offensive wrestling is solid. All around a good fighter. Is he great? No, of course not. Is he good? Yeah. And he's fought the upper echelon. He's not afraid of people. He'll move forward. He can get hit. I mean, Mike Malott, shockingly, smoked him a little bit. But Mickey Gall's not nearly as bad as people say he is. He's fighting Ramiz Brahimaj. Ramiz Brahimaj, you're going to get mixed reviews on his grappling. You're going to hear, oh, he's a world champion. Oh, he's phenomenal. And he obviously is a very good grappler. And he's an accomplished grappler at that. He has 10 wins. All 10 of those wins are by submission. He'll bomb away in his feet. He's got some power, but he's not knocking people out with it. He'll get the takedowns, and he'll look to grapple. And when he's in complete control and he's doing what he's doing and he's fighting some of these guys that can't hang with him in the grappling, he will submit them. He basically has submitted everybody he has beaten. I said basically, but he did, literally, quite literally. All submission wins. But he can be broken. He is submission or bust. You can come forward. You can take him down. You can avoid the submissions. You can beat on him. You can wear on him. You can grind on him, and he will quit on you. This loss, this wasn't a quit. This Max Griffin loss, Max Griffin literally punched his ear off. It's the most disgusting. Go watch it. Ramiz Brahimaj's ear was hanging on by a thread. He punched his ear off. But even though Ramiz Brahimaj is a phenomenal grappler, Mickey Gall, I believe, is defensively sound enough to get his own takedowns, be afraid of absolutely nothing, work on top, and win this fight. And he's only $8,300. He could finish Ramiz here. He could decision him, right? He may not finish him, but he could absolutely finish him or get a bunch of takedowns, bunch of control, and score well there. I like Mickey Gall, and if you're looking at a lineup, it's not the worst play in the world to have him in there, even though he is 1-4 in his last 5. Then we have Marcin Tybura taking on Jhonata Diniz. If you asked me 4 days ago how confident I was Marcin was going to win, I was very confident. Now, a little less confident. Nothing's changed. You just stare at a pick long enough, and you stare at a fight long enough, and you start to convince yourself of things. Marcin Tybura is a grinding wrestler heavyweight. He doesn't have big, beautiful, clean takedowns, but he will come forward, get a hold of you, grab, trip, drag you to the ground, and then work from there. He doesn't have heavyweight power in his hands, but he'll throw a whole bunch of punches. And his ultimate goal is always to get you to the ground. He is coming off that submission loss to Sergey Spivak, but Sergey is a phenomenal grappler. The win over Tai Tuivasa was solid, right? Weathered a storm, got the fight to the ground, took over from there. Obviously, Tom Aspinall knocked him out, but Tom Aspinall's knocking everybody out. The Ivanov fight, solid win. The Romanov fight, incredible win. He took an absolute beating in that first round. Was picked up, thrown, weathered the storm, came back, kept working, kept moving, kept working, kept moving, and got it done. Marcin Tybura is getting old. But he is a grinder, and he can get fights to the ground. And that's going to matter very much here because Jhonata Diniz sucks on the ground. Very good striker, very dangerous striker. He's got some real power. He didn't knock out Carl Williams, but he had that dude on Queer Street 15 times in that fight. And that is a term. Don't get all weird. That's a term when we talk about strikers. When we talk about people getting wobbled and rocked and flopping all over the place. Jhonata Diniz has some very real power and can be very dangerous on the feet. He's a professional Muay Thai fighter. He fought professionally for a long time before moving over to MMA. The problem is he is useless on the ground. Useless. We watched Carl Williams take Jhonata down. And when he took him down, Jhonata was just laying flat on his back. Had nothing to offer, nowhere to go, couldn't do anything off of his back. So I picked Marcin Tybura to win. I do think he wins. And he could potentially finish Jhonata here. Or just grind on him and wear on him and get the takedowns, get the control time. So he could be solid value. The problem is, the more I stare at it, the more I look at it. I look at Marcin Tybura's advanced age. I see how dangerous of a striker Jhonata is. And Marcin Tybura needs to close the distance to get this to the ground. He's not shooting beautiful doubles from across the cage. So there is a bunch of fear in me that Jhonata is going to bang, catch him on the way in. With that being said, I'm still picking Marcin. I will probably explore him in a lineup or two, but I do get a little nervous that he's old. That worries me just a smidge. Now we have the newest fight on the card. This was just added the other day. We have David Onama, and he is now taking on Roberto Romero. He was supposed to fight somebody entirely different. He was supposed to fight a dangerous striker. Now he's fighting a grappler. David Onama is a kickboxer. He likes to plot forward. He can control the pace. He doesn't really throw a ton of volume, but he is very effective. A very good long jab, constantly pushing things out there. He's busy in the clinch. He'll elbow, he'll knee. His takedown defense is at 52% if you look at it, but he defends the ones he needs to. He was taken down 7 times in his last 2 fights, but he still won both of those. Took a decision off Jonathan Pierce, took down 5 times. Knocked out Santos after getting taken down 2 times. And David Onama is an absolute dog. He is also a humongous, ridiculously huge favorite in this fight. He's like minus 1,500 on the sports books. If you don't know what that means you would have to bet $1,500. And if he wins, you get your $1,500 back, of course, and then a $100 profit. You have to risk $1,500 to win 100. 15 to 1 favorite. He's taking on Roberto Romero. This guy's stepping up on crazy short notice. And he's not like some wild, undefeated prospect either. But he is stepping up on short notice. Not an easy task. Style-wise, he's a forward pressure grappler. He likes to close the distance. He wants to get you to the cage, work in some takedowns. If he ends up on top, he's going to work for control more than a finish. He's not hunting for submissions. He's hanging out on top. He's establishing the position, and maybe he'll strike here or there. On his feet, striking is not great, but he is tough. He can take a shot, and he's not going to stop coming forward. Roberto Romero gets smoked here. He's going to get absolutely smoked. He is tough. He's somewhat durable. But David Onama was training for this card, was already on this card. Even when his opponent dropped, the UFC said, fly out with your team. We'll get you on the card. Do not worry about a thing. So he had the unknowns of who am I going to fight, but he never had the glitch in like, all right, well, I got to stop cutting weight or I can start eating salt again. If you don't know, fighters cut out salt. I mean, every fighter's a little different, but sometimes a week or 2 ahead of time. If not about 5 days, they start to cut out salt. Then it's like grilled chicken and steamed broccoli, no salt. Then they start the water load process and all that bullshit. But if you're 5 days out from a fight and you lose your opponent and you don't think you're fighting, you may make some adjustments, which will then make your weight cut harder once the fight's back on. None of that happened for David Onama. When his opponent dropped, the UFC said, come to New York, bring your coaches, you will be fighting. So hopefully he changed literally nothing. He should absolutely smoke here, and he is a very, very, very expensive $9,700. But if you're building multiple lineups, I mean, there's a few guys on this card that are basically a lock, and he is now one of them. Then we have Damon Jackson taking on Jim Miller. And Jim Miller is not an easy outing for anybody, but this is going to be an interesting matchup because Damon Jackson is also a very good grappler. He likes to snatch things up in scrambles. He'll come forward. He'll shoot a takedown. They are doing him a disservice with this picture. He went to Turkey. Actually, he didn't do it in Turkey. He did it here in Dallas. He got the hair done, and he looks spectacular. He could do a Paulie D blowout right now, and it would look unbelievable. So, I mean, if I'm him and I made those adjustments, I would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to have every picture of me looking like this wiped clean off the internet. They don't exist. It never exists. I don't know who that is. I have never seen that man in my entire life. Wipe it out of existence. Tinder profile, switched. Nobody, that would be gone forever. I'd call the UFC and say, hey, I'll pay for the AI to go back to my old fights and fix the shit up. He's great looking now. Great looking with great hair. And that confidence from the hair has followed him into the cage. The hair fight was the Hernandez fight. That was his first fight back with the good hair. Lost to Billy Quarantillo, took a year off to get the hair squared up, and he did. And he looked good in that fight. Had the takedowns. I almost got finished in the third, but had the takedowns, had the control, did what he does. Then he fought Chepe Mariscal. He did lose that fight, but Chepe is a dog. He's an absolute dog. But there were some competitive moments in that fight. He just couldn't handle the pressure. Damon Jackson's a guy that's going to come forward, strike with you a little bit, immediately look to grapple. You can see here his nickname is The Leech. I think it's actually been changed to Action Man or something to honor his brother. His brother passed away. But The Leech is a perfect nickname for him because when he gets you on the ground, he's like an 8th layer of skin. You are not getting rid of this guy. He is fighting a much more experienced Jim Miller. Jim Miller literally has records for longevity in the UFC. Most amount of fights, most amount of fight minutes, most amount of wins. All these records. Because he's been around forever. In fact, he fought at UFC 100, UFC 200, and UFC 300. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt, but he has, and I know I'm criticizing, people don't like this take either, he got that black belt 20-something years ago. I personally, as somebody who has been training for 20-plus years, been around all of the combat sports for a very long time at different capacities, I have personally, with my own eyes, seen the sport evolve. And I'm not implying that Jim Miller hasn't evolved or hasn't got better in his jiu-jitsu. I'm not saying that. That would be an absurd thing to say. What I am saying, though, is somebody's black belt from 20 years ago who is built like Jim Miller. He's not long. He's not lean. He's got shorter arms, shorter legs, not really doing all the craziness with the darces. He's not doing any of the long guy techniques. He's using just solid, clean, fundamental BJJ. If you take somebody like that and you compare them to this new era of jiu-jitsu, where they are using their long limbs and wrapping up different chokes and working through different positions and evolving jiu-jitsu to make more sense in the UFC than traditional jiu-jitsu, right? Hanging out in your guard is not going to win you fights. All of this is to say that Jim Miller is very accomplished. He's very durable. He's Jersey tough. He's all of those things. But I don't think it's going to be a problem for Damon Jackson. I think he gets it done. Even though on paper, Jim Miller is the far more accomplished grappler, been a black belt for 10 times longer, I don't think the jiu-jitsu is going to be a problem for Damon Jackson. He is long. He is lean. He's got the wrestling to back it up. So I think Damon Jackson wins this fight. I don't know what kind of numbers he's going to put up, though. If we go back to Damon very quickly, he put up 82 points in the win over Hernandez. And that's probably what we're looking at here. Some takedowns, a good amount of control. More than half the fight will be in a control position for Damon. He doesn't really put up big numbers. The last time he put up big numbers was when he smoked Pat Sabatini, and that included the quick win bonus. Oh, no, that wasn't a quick win. It was after a few minutes there. But we smoked Pat Sabatini, came across the cage, dropped him, and got it done. Point being, I think Damon Jackson wins. I think 8,600 is far too much. I'm not going to have him in my lineup. Then we have Eryk Anders taking on Chris Weidman. This should be a fun fight. It's going to be sloppy as hell. Eryk Anders, former Division I football player who won a national championship with Alabama. He's big, he's strong, and he's athletic. He's not great, but he's big, he's strong, and he's athletic. He's going to move forward. He's going to stay in your face, spells his name like a lunatic, but he does a great job hurting you. He'll punch you in scrambles. He'll elbow you on the way out. Like everything he does is to hurt you. When he is in there, he knows he's in a fight. He's not playing some point game. He's not worrying about control time. He's literally trying to hurt his opponents. So he's not the best guy. He's not the most well-skilled guy. He's starting to decline a little bit. He's 37. We watched him get dropped by Jamie Pickett. That's not a great look. But he is big, strong, tough, durable, and that is why he's the favorite here, because if we're talking about accomplishments, he doesn't have anything near Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman, former middleweight world champion, beat Anderson Silva twice. Once you could call a fluke, the second time clean as day, and I have those reversed. Knocked him out clean. Second time the leg snapped in half, it is what it is. And then unfortunate, fight karma got him when his leg snapped in half against Uriah Hall. And then you can see the multi-year layoff, about 2.5 years. I mean, his leg snapped in half. About 2.5 years later, he comes back against Brad Tavares. Looked terrible. Like terrible bad. Real bad. real bad. But he got it out of his system. He stepped into the octagon, made the walk, got it out of his system. The nervousness, is my leg going to break again? Could you imagine kicking somebody, your leg snaps in half, and then 2 years later, going to kick somebody again? That has to be nerve-wracking. Is my leg going to snap in half again? It has to be nerve-wracking. So he got that out of his system. He just fought Bruno Silva in the spring. There was a couple of eye pokes. It was very controversial, all that bullshit, but he looked good. He looked good. He wasn't the guy who fought Brad Tavares. He wasn't his old self. He is never going to be. He's 40. But he looked good in that last fight. I think he can win this fight too. I think Chris Weidman can have some success in this fight. I think he can get the takedowns. I think he could hang a little bit in the striking. He is older. He's always been a touch chinny. So hopefully he's not chinny now. I am going to avoid this fight for DraftKings Fantasy, but I think Chris Weidman can absolutely win this fight, and I am picking him to win this fight. Then we have the featured prelim of the evening. We have Jonathan Martinez taking on Marcus McGhee. Jonathan Martinez is very, very good. I'm not going to call him a one-trick pony. I know you're thinking I'm going to call him that. I'm not going to call him a one-trick pony. Yes, we have seen that one trick several times, most recently when he stopped Adrian Yanez with those leg kicks, and he has phenomenal leg kicks. But he is good. He's a well-rounded guy. He's got technical striking. He also has some slick BJJ. That Muay Thai striking style, that's what helps him with those incredible leg kicks. And again, in scrambles, he will snatch up submissions. He did just lose to Jose Aldo, but a lot of that felt like he was starstruck and awestruck. He fought the King of Rio in Rio de Janeiro on a pay-per-view main card. And I think that was just a bit too much. And since then, he's made some giant life changes. Left his gym, started his own gym, and good for him. Good for him. Take control of your own financial future. He started a business. Problem is, you're preparing for another really big fight. And I don't know who's at his fight camp. I don't know what training partners he brought in. So I'm not going to criticize the training camp of it, but giant life changes in a fight camp only add stress and only make things more complicated in your life. And I think that may matter here because you need Jonathan Martinez to be insanely focused and ready to go fighting Marcus McGhee, because Marcus McGhee is wildly dangerous. 9-1 with 9 finishes. He is a powerful guy. He's got incredible heavy hands. He has takedowns. He has one-punch knockouts. His takedown defense is also solid. He's got good submissions. In scrambles, he'll snatch things up. He's like physically a beast. Marcus McGhee seems to be the real deal. I talked about earlier how as the week has gone on, I've gotten less and less confident in Marcin Tybura. Well, with Marcus McGhee, I'm getting more and more confident. As this week goes on, I am more and more confident that Marcus McGhee is going to blow here. Blow as in, not in a bad way, not in a Diddy way. Blow like blow through Jonathan Martinez. I think Marcus McGhee gets it done. $8,400 may be worth it. I mean, he's got 9 fights with 9 finishes. Who says he can't have another finish? Marcus McGhee is going to be the Picarino. Then we have the UFC 309 main card opener, Mauricio Ruffy taking on James Llontop. Listen, Mauricio Ruffy is light years ahead of James Llontop, a million times the better fighter. We need finishes to score well in DraftKings Fantasy, and Mauricio Ruffy should be live for a finish. We'll talk about why he might not be, but he should be live for a finish. He's a nasty striker. He's got that old school prime of his life. You can't see my whole body, but what I'm doing right now is an incredible Conor McGregor impression. He's got that old school, when Conor was at his prime, stance. The big wide legs, the wide hands, and he moves in and out incredibly fast. He's got great power. He's got great speed. He also has decent cardio. He's got a ton of finishes, so we don't quite know what a full-blown back-and-forth fight's going to look like, but we have seen him fight late. And he's carried the power late and gotten finishes in the third. So we know he's not going to death gas. He absolutely just smoked Jamie Malarkey, and we know he's training at a phenomenal gym with a bunch of beast killers. He's taking on James Llontop. 2 L's makes a Y, apparently. And James Llontop is just tough. He's just tough. He's well-rounded overall. He's got plenty of finishes on his side, right? 14 wins. A whole bunch of those are by finish. But he's just tough. He's got power in his hands, plenty of cardio, so you don't have to worry that he's going to gas out. You could argue he was winning this Borshev fight, but he's just a guy with a granite chin that's going to move forward, staying busy. In this fight, he's going to be a punching bag. The question becomes, can Ruffy finish him? Should be able to. But James is durable. He's a very durable guy. So Ruffy might just end up putting on a clinic. It might be a wildly one-sided fight, but all of a sudden Ruffy scored 88 points because there's no takedowns, couldn't chalk this guy, couldn't knock him out, but he smoked him on the feet. That's my only hesitation with Ruffy. I'm a million % sure he's going to win this fight. I'm very positive it's going to be dominant. I just don't know if he's going to finish James because James is durable. But Mauricio's that dangerous. That's going to be a great fight to watch. Then we have Viviane Araújo, and she is taking on Karine Silva. Viviane Araújo, tried and true. Been around forever. And yes, she is 2-3 in her last 5, but look who she's fighting. These are all top 10, top 15 fighters. She just lost to Natalia Silva, who may end up being a world champion. Beat Jennifer Maia, lost to Amanda Ribas, lost to Grasso, the champion. Beat Andrea Lee. This Saramina is, what's her name? The giant chick that screams when she throws punches. Yeah. Beat Roxanne Modafferi. Beat Montana De La Rosa. Lost to Jessica Ai. These are all good wins and good losses. She's beating who she's supposed to and losing to the people who are at the upper echelon of these divisions. Viviane Araújo is a grappler. She is very comfortable striking as well. She's got technical boxing, great low kicks. She gets hit pretty often, but she's tough. She's durable. She's not just going to get put out of there. You can see the amount of decisions this woman has been in. She's got this one finish win over Bernardo in 2019. Everything since then, win or lose, is a decision. And some of that is because offensively, she's a good grappler. She'll come forward, not wildly dangerous. And defensively, she's tough, she's durable, and she's got a whole bunch of veteran savvy. She's taking on Karine Silva. Karine Silva is 18-4. 17 of those 18 wins were by finish. Her first ever decision was this last fight against Ariana Lipski, listed as De Silva. Karine Silva is exactly that. She moves forward, she'll bomb heavy, and then look to get fights to the ground. When she gets it to the ground, she is absolutely hunting for submission. She is not taking her time. She's immediately looking for submissions. She's also looking for ground and pound. You'll see some KOs and TKOs on her record, not in the UFC, but on her official record. Those are ground and pound. She's not knocking people out on the feet. Karine Silva's a beast. Karine Silva should absolutely 100% win this fight. I do think, however, it is a decision. And a lot of that has to do with how good Viviane Araújo is. I don't see Vivi getting subbed here. I don't see her getting finished either. She's a tried and true vet. She's a durable vet. I think this does go to a decision. Karine Silva will see her second fight go to decision. And that's not a unique situation. How many times have we seen prospects in the UFC tear through people, and then as they work their way up the ladder, they're not having that exact level of success, and that's normal. Right? Okay, you beat Marina Moroz. Kind of sucks. Souza. Well, that's a good win. Botello. Kind of sucks. Then you get to Ariana Lipski, who is good. She couldn't finish her. We just watched Jazzy DeVicious finish her, but as the level of competition increases, the finishes will decrease. I think this goes to a decision. Therefore, Karine Silva is not worth her $9,200 price tag. Then we got Bo Nickel and Paul Craig. Bo Nickel, $9,800, the most expensive guy on this card. Probably worth it. Probably worth it. The problem with this card is you have a couple of fighters that are wildly expensive. If you put David Onama and Bo Nickel in your lineup, you have to love a lot of these underdogs. And we talked about some 7,000-ish priced fighters that are worth a shot. And these lineups are going to be very, very interesting. Bo Nickel wins this fight. Like, let's not fuck around. Let's not, that Paul Craig gang, that every time that absolute dork jiu-jitsu nerd shows up, people are pretending he's going to win the fight. Oh, Paul Craig by sub. Dude, Paul Craig gets his face bashed in. 1/10 of the time, he pulls off a late win after getting smoked. The other 9/10 of the time, loses that fight. Bo Nickel's beating the shit out of him. The question becomes, does Bo Nickel strike more than he usually does? I've been saying this in every video this week. Bo Nickel has only landed 23 significant strikes in his entire career. His whole career, only 23 significant strikes. That includes Dana White Contender Series, literally his whole career. But now he's fighting somebody that has no danger whatsoever on the feet. He's 6 wins into his career. He's fighting somebody who's not dangerous on the feet, who is dangerous on the ground. And Bo Nickel, who's a high-level, well-trained athlete, may say, I need to go out here. I need to test my hands. I need to get comfortable with my hands. We did watch him knock out Val Woodburn in one punch. I don't think that was a game plan, though. He just landed a perfect punch and knocked him out. This game plan might be to strike. Test it out. Get your hands going. Either way, even if he strikes, anything bad comes his way, he'll shoot a takedown. He'll smoke Paul Craig. We'll look at Paul Craig. I mean, it's basically pointless. Here he is. Here's your king. Lost on his feet to Kyle Barallo. Brendan Allen out jiu-jitsu'd the shit out of him. Walker smoked him. Ozdemir smoked him. I mean, Paul Craig just gets the crap beat out of him, maybe pulls off a late submission, or that's it. Oh, he beat Andre Muniz in his middleweight debut. Dude, Andre Muniz sucks too. I don't know where all this anger just came from. My bad. I guess I got a problem with some of the Scottish people. I don't know. I thought I liked them, but it is what it is. Then we have the co-main, Charles Oliveira, taking on Michael Chandler in a rematch. Let's scroll down. Let's look at it. Scored 109 points the first time they fought. Listen, that was years ago. This is a very different fight. Charles Oliveira, as we all know, is the all-time submission king. Most amount of submissions in any weight class, any division, male or female. All-time submission king. He also gets dropped a shit ton, but then he just pops right back up. Comes forward, gets people in trouble. He's got power in his hands. He's got phenomenal technical striking. He's averages about 2 takedowns per fight. He's got insanely dangerous jiu-jitsu. Charles Oliveira is the real deal. Even in this fight with Arman Sarukian that he lost, very clearly lost. I picked him to lose, and that's exactly what happened. He almost had Arman submitted. It was real dicey early. And that's the danger. You're never settled. You're never comfortable fighting Charles Oliveira. He's fighting Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler has had an interesting career because he was the multiple-time Bellator champion. Came into the UFC, immediately knocked out Dan Hooker. They gave him a title shot. His second fight in the UFC was a title shot against Charles Oliveira. And he had success. He won that first round. In the second round, things went sideways, but he won that first round. Then he fought Justin Gaethje. And in that fight, technique went out the window. That's when he was like, you know how I'm going to get paid? Being a fan favorite. So that's what he did. Was swinging wild, didn't really wrestle. He's a high-level accomplished wrestler. Didn't really wrestle, swinging wild, putting on a show, having a ton of fun. Then he goes out there with Ferguson, has that all-time front kick knockout highlight, and then Dustin Poirier was basically the exact same thing as the Justin Gaethje fight. He was having success. Dustin caught him in an incredible scramble, but Michael Chandler was having success. If you go back to the Bellator days, watch Michael Chandler take on, what the hell was his name? Who's the dude Conor beat for the lightweight champion? Eddie Alvarez. Watch Michael Chandler versus Eddie Alvarez. They have fought twice, and they are all-time fights. They might have fought 3 times. I think it's only twice. All-time fights. Michael Chandler has the skills to beat Charles Oliveira. He is fast as hell. He hits hard as hell. He's a high-level wrestler, and he has cardio. I mean, we see him fade and get sloppy, but that's because when he's fighting to entertain, like when he fought Poirier, when he fought Gaethje, he's just swinging wild, everything at 100%. But Michael Chandler is good, and he's tough, and he's gritty. The problem is, you don't know what he's going to do, and he hasn't fought in 2 years. He's been waiting for Conor McGregor, and he was this close. And then Conor's pinky toe got broken. But there is footage of him. We've seen pictures of him, and he looks the best he has ever looked. It is not even close. I am going to fade this fight in DraftKings Fantasy. Ultimately, I pick Charles Oliveira because he's already won this fight. It's 2 years removed from Michael Chandler's last fight. But again, you guys are going to hate me for this, and I know Charles Oliveira is a fan favorite and all-time great as far as the lightweight record books are concerned. I think Charles Oliveira, I don't want to say overrated because I don't mean that. So don't get all unsubscribe. He said Charles Oliveira. That's not what I'm saying. I guess what I'm saying is Charles Oliveira is not bulletproof. We've seen him dropped many times. We've seen him in trouble time and time again. And the older you get, the less recovery you're going to have getting dropped. And Michael Chandler dropped Charles Oliveira, had Charles Oliveira in some trouble. I'm not saying Michael Chandler's going to win. The 2-year layoff is kind of a problem. But I'm going to fade both sides of this fight. I don't think Charles Oliveira is the absolute lock that most people think he is. John Jones, however, is a lock. I think he's going to win this fight. I think he's going to smoke. I think he's going to absolutely smoke. And you know what? If you want a $300 discount instead of getting Bo Nickel, you could get Jon Jones. I think they both win by finish. Problem is, Bo Nickel might win by finish in the first minute. Jon Jones won't be that quick about it, but I do think he gets it done. Obviously, all-time great. The debate is he the greatest fighter of all time? He's the greatest light heavyweight of all time. That's not even up for any debate anywhere ever. But the debate is, if you include all weight classes and everybody ever, is he the best to ever do it? Statistically speaking, he might be. Youngest champion ever. He has only ever fought phenomenal fighters, right? This is before he got to the belt. I don't know who the hell this guy is, but that's Stephan Bonner. Matt Hamill, this loss, beat the shit out of Matt Hamill, had the illegal elbow. And then he fought Vladimir Matsushenko. He was good back in the day. Ryan Bader smoked him. This is the belt win. Youngest champion of all time. Then Jackson, then Machida, then Rashad Evans, then Vitor Belfort. Chael Sonnen, this fight, his toe was broken in half. The bone was sticking out. If he didn't finish Chael Sonnen at the first round, they would have gotten to the stool in between rounds. That fight would have been canceled, but he did. Gustafsson, some people think he lost, but he didn't. Beat Glover. Beat Daniel Cormier. St. Preux, this was kind of a giveaway fight. Beat Daniel Cormier again. Beat Gustafsson again. Anthony Smith, Santos Reyes. And then the long layoff until he became the heavyweight champion. Jon Jones is the best fighter to ever do it. I have a whole hot take video about it. If you want to factor in steroids and failed drug tests, well, then it's Demetrius Johnson. If you don't give a shit about that stuff, it's JJ. We'll look at the other side because we deserve or we owe the respect to Stipe. Stipe is the greatest heavyweight of all time, certainly statistically speaking. I'm not going to be able to remember exactly when he won the belt, but at a certain point here, he won the belt, kept the belt, defended the belt more than anybody ever. And he has wins over all-time heavyweights. Andrei Arlovski, Fabricio Verdum, Alexander Overeem, Dos Santos, Francis Ngannou. He beat him, lost to Daniel Cormier. That's how Daniel Cormier became the champ. Then he rematched Daniel Cormier a year later, beat him. They ran it back again a year after that, and he beat him again, and then he lost to Francis Ngannou. The problem with Stipe Miocic's career is you can see the tail end of it. A full year layoff between those two fights. A full year layoff between those. A full year layoff between that. And now we're going on a 4-year layoff. Stipe Miocic is a full-time fireman. And I love it. My stepfather's a fireman. I basically grew up in a firehouse. He's a full-time fireman. He worked a full 24-hour shift on Saturday. 7 days from the day he is fighting for the UFC's heavyweight championship of the world, Stipe Miocic put in a full shift. They're just different people. Stipe is one of the best to ever do it. Clean boxing, durable as shit, moves forward. He can wrestle as well, but he's not going to out-wrestle Jon Jones. He's 40-something years old. He probably can't outstrike Jon Jones either, as crazy as that sounds. Jon Jones wins this fight. Every single one of us will be rooting for Stipe Miocic. Jon Jones is cringy as shit. Let's hope he gets smoked. He has all the karma coming to him. He beat his wife. This guy has more bad karma coming his way than anybody I know. I just don't know if it's going to catch up to him on Saturday night. Guys, that is the breakdown. These tickets are not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that people are putting up giant numbers because they have access to the best DraftKings ownership projections on the planet. Here's the numbers. Go back to every video. I share the numbers. You can compare them to any other organization you want to. They have access to the DraftKings optimizer, the cheat sheet, access to all of our picks and bets, every single thing that we do. One single package. No bullshit. Oh, fantasy is this. Bets are this. Oh, this. No bullshit. It's $10 for every single thing that we do. And if you've uncovered some lazy turd with a Patreon, because that's the easy way out to beg for money. If you bump into some bum on the internet with a Patreon and they're paying or charging God knows what, you're not going to get better value than this. What do you do? Pay for somebody's data? We got the data. You're going to pay for somebody's 4 list of bets? We got that. And our ROI, our long-term success is insane. You're going to pay for ownership projections? Well, that's included in ours, and we quite literally have the best projections on the planet. Our goal from day one was to create the greatest value in this space because value is what lasts with people. We're going to have ups and downs. Nobody's going to win every single week. What people will do, though, is create an account, log in, and be like, holy shit, this is an incredible experience. Look at all these things I have. And that is what resonates with people. And that's why we have over 4,000 active premium members. I appreciate every last one of you. Every single thing, me, Jacob, Josh, every single thing that we do, is to make sure that premium is the best offer on this planet. Thanks so much for the watch. The year is winding down, but we are not. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top.